Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. It's great to have so many of you join into the session today, where we're going to be talking about the necessity for organizations to invest in digital transformation now. And we'll also be providing some examples and tidbits of what you need in place in order to be successful in those challenges. So I'm really looking forward to sharing some insights with you all today, and I will take you through the presentation. But for those of you who are not aware of who I am, my name is Ben Saunders. I'm the VP of Strategy and Consulting at Contino. I've been with the business now for about 3.5 years, and I've been working with all manner of our customers across the world in order to help them digitally transform, but also embrace modern engineering practices like DevOps, look at ways in which they can exploit cloud computing in their organizations in order to unlock business value and move them towards agile ways of working at scale in the enterprise. For anybody that I'm not yet connected to, feel free to find me on LinkedIn, and you can also find me on Twitter as well by the handler on the screen. For those of you that are not familiar with Contino, I'll just give you a little bit of color and background about our business. So as an organization, we really pride ourselves on helping organizations to digitally transform. So one of the things that we really focus on as part of that change is really identifying where our customers have contention, where they have challenges, and where they have complexity. And through that complexity, we look at ways in which we can deploy enterprise DevOps, cloud native computing, and data platforms in order for them to build beautiful products and great services for our customers to engage with their customers. So one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is also helping our customers build their own innovation engine, which will allow them invariably to deliver better software to market faster, but also do that in a safe and secure way as part of their digital transformation ambitions. As an organization, we've now scaled to over 400 people globally, with offices in EMEA, APAC, and North America. In terms of our engagements and our history, I believe we're probably one of the most reputable organizations globally in terms of helping organizations move to modern ways of working. And we've probably helped more enterprises than any other professional services business scale DevOps capabilities in the enterprise. And I think just to kind of touch on some of the example customers that we work with, the likes of Allianz, Barclays, and HSBC, to name but a few. But if you look at a lot of those organizations at the bottom, we really pride ourselves on helping regulated industries scale digital capabilities quickly. And naturally, those experiences traverse well into organizations that aren't as heavily regulated also. So what are we going to be talking about today? So as ever, there is a whole heap of conjecture and industry furore around the impact of COVID-19, not only just on business, but in society as a whole. So we'll do a little bit of a preamble and set the scene for everybody there. But we'll also talk about why is it a necessity for organizations to embrace in digital capabilities now. And that will be based off the back of several blogs that I executed and delivered at the start of the COVID pandemic. We'll also kind of tease into why do some organizations struggle with transforming, but also what are the skills and capabilities they need in order to succeed. And I'll also seed in a couple of examples about why digital capabilities actually work and how they help to scale business value and unlock contention in enterprise organizations to really kind of allow organizations to deliver change at speed and at scale across the world. So invariably, look, we've spoken a couple of times now about the pandemic as part of our CloudFest series, and I think everybody is familiar with a number of these contentious issues that we're seeing across industry. So we've seen a lot of information in industry and the news media around grocery organizations not being able to fulfill quotas and criteria, lots of queuing and lots of demand online, lots of people not going into typical bricks and mortar establishments to get their food supplies. There's a lot of information in the media around organizations that have had contention standing up and maintaining their telephony contact centers. And there is a whole heap of conjecture around market stability and contention across global markets. So these are really, really uncertain times, as everybody seems to be commentating on at this moment in time. And the effect of COVID-19 is continuing to cause a lot of contention and a lot of strain So for those of you that are dialing in from around the world, we've provided a couple of examples here where we're seeing issues in the British marketplace with a number of industries and verticals that are suffering significant contention. So British Airways, one of the world's most renowned airline carriers globally, yesterday announced that it's going to be laying off 12,000 jobs as part of its 42,000 person strong workforce. These are really horrible things to be hearing in industry, and these aren't as tightly coupled to digital capabilities as we would generally like. But ultimately, there are issues and implications as a result of the total cost of ownership of running an airline actually having a material impact on that organization's ability to maintain its employee base. And there's a couple of examples here from the retail outlets as well that we're, are fairly reputable in the UK marketplace. So John Lewis, a long-time established retailer in the United Kingdom, renowned on the high streets as one of the great service providers in the UK. They're looking at their real estate and saying it's going to be highly unlikely that all of their 50 sites are going to open post-COVID. And John Lewis, as an example, is a forward-thinking organization that have been speaking openly about their work with Google Cloud Platform in order to differentiate themselves from their competitors and take that great service and customer experience online. And then you have the likes of Primark. So Primark is a low-cost retailer. They pride themselves on churning mass produce of fashion, fashion emporiums onto the high street really quickly. So what's hot in Milan will very quickly be hot in Reading. But invariably, they don't have an online presence. So their business has gone from generating the best part of £650 million a month to zero. Now, they've said that it's very difficult for that kind of low cost of business, kind of low charge business to be able to service its customers through an online channel. But invariably, I'm sure that there's things that they are now looking at to say, well, how do we deliver that e-commerce experience online? And how do we service our customers in a way that we can respond to this degradation of service and make sure that we can continue to support, deliver the fashion that we do to our customers in the high street. And Debenhams, unfortunately, Debenhams was experiencing significant issues pre-COVID, and the sledgehammer that was COVID has actually exacerbated issues that they've had in their business for a number of years. Again, not taking on a position where they see e-commerce as a serious opportunity, not looking at how they can lower their total cost of ownership from a business perspective and close down profitable, not non-profitable retail establishments. And they've actually just unfortunately announced other significant job losses across their organization. So COVID is really impacting, and I think that just kind of identifies that there are going to be more and more challenges across industries, irrespective of the vertical. And ultimately, organizations are going to have to think differently about how they engage with their customers on a regular basis. And I think for me, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about digital transformation, and I actually fell out of love with the phrase of digital transformation until recently. And there's a whole heap of challenge and issue that we're seeing across the world at this moment in time. And actually, we're speaking with a lot of customers at Contino who have openly said, look, we neglected our digital investments, and we didn't really take that seriously. And now we're reassessing where we focus our attention in the next quarter, and actually looking at how we reprioritize our investment strategies to make sure that we can, respond to the new normal, but make sure that we've got a digital capability that allows us to not just survive, but to thrive in the kind of the uncertain times that we're moving into. So everybody will have seen all manner of material hit LinkedIn and social media channels around the remote working explosion. We spoke a moment ago around contact centers being overwhelmed, not necessarily having the capacity because the call agents aren't there to service those calls coming through to the call centers, which is then having a material impact on long-standing enterprises' ability to engage with their customers. And naturally, when you have a query, whether it's asking about a mortgage holiday, whether it's asking about an insurance policy that you've taken out to protect your small, medium enterprise business, and you can't speak to people in order to have your queries resolved, that's going to build a little bit of reticence and resentment about the products and services that you've bought. insurance by its nature is a begrudging purchase, and if you have a sour taste in your mouth as a result of those experiences in the long term, the likelihood is you're going to take your policy and your business elsewhere. I spoke a moment or two about the volatile market conditions. So we know that the trades and the markets are increasingly volatile at this moment, given the uncertainty that we're all facing. And there is a position that is creeping into industries where they're looking at where they're hedging their bets and where their investments are, and potentially they might be pausing some of those investments and taking a position whereby they believe that cash is going to be king throughout this whole process. And I think there are examples through history and through other economically uncertain times where there have been examples of spending your way out of these problems is actually the right thing to do. And I think based on some of that analysis that I've been looking into, and the conversations that I've been having with customers, more and more I'm actually convinced that digital is the only means of survival for a number of organizations. So where we talk about the remote working explosion, having a digital workforce and all of those capabilities to collaborate in real time, whether that be through video conferencing, whether that be through real-time Slack communications, those things need to be in place. How many of us have been in a workshop where you've been writing on a whiteboard and someone said, sorry, we're just going to write on the whiteboard. Sorry for those of you that are on the phone and can't see this. So all of those kind of digitally interactive solutions are going to be more and more important for a workforce that over time may become globally distributed. I think where we've seen contact centers experience significant contention, solutions like Call Center AI from GCP and Amazon Connect, being able to instantiate those capabilities really, really quickly so you can have a contact center in a box, and then use that with virtual desktop infrastructure so that your contact center can be remotely working and gain access to your telephony systems really quickly is quite important. And also having the power of those solutions to also provide additional resource capacity from a compute perspective so that you don't have serious contention with customers waiting on the telephone lines for really, really long periods of time. And as part of that kind of customer experience and enrichment of how you engage with your customers, the ability to be able to use real-time interaction solutions, chatbots, and those sorts of things, so you can actually remove a lot of that contention and pressure on traditional channels so that you can respond to customer demands in a slightly more automated and intelligent way. And as a result of those volatile market conditions, there's the ability to be able to harness things like AI and ML so that you can make more informed decisions about your investments in the market. So there's a lot of information around financial institutions that have been using the likes of GCP and AWS and Microsoft Azure to be able to use kind of their own proprietary quantitative risk algorithms against HPC solutions that they don't necessarily have on premise. So all of these sorts of things to be able to very quickly analyze, interpret, and then respond to market insights from a financial perspective is only going to be growing as we move through these periods as well. And when we talk about that position of cash will be king, I think we've all been party to projects and programs that actually have never really succeeded. And organizations for many, many years have this obsession of centralizing their technology capability and building an emporium of solutions that are actually going to be servicing the enterprise. And naturally, those things don't actually meet the requirements or the initial business case that was established in the first place. So more and more, as part of these digital investments, organizations are going to be able to get a better understanding of their total cost of ownership and actually very quickly understand if a business service line or a category of a product or service is actually generating the revenue that it's expected. And if not, be able to make additional changes to their resource portfolio, to their features and their functionality that they're looking to deliver as part of that product set, or naturally, if that product is not delivering money, deprecate it in its entirety. And just to kind of give a couple of thoughts on this, so where we think about global markets and industry change and who's going to be here the longest, I thought there was quite a pertinent quote from Charles Darwin. So he says that it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. So for those of you that have got the idea of a chameleon changing its skin out there, that's exactly what I came up with when I was thinking about this. But if we take an example from the Fortune 500 now, compared to what it looked like in the year 2000. So if we look at the year 2000, that was very much centricated around manufacturers, oil companies, and one or two engineering and technical organizations in there as well. And if we fast forward to 2020, I'm sure there's no great surprise to see a large proportion of healthcare providers and medical pharmaceutical organizations amongst there. But there are a growing number of tech companies finding their way into the top 10 of the Fortune 500. And naturally, we're also seeing private equity firms who invariably are significantly investing their customers' money in tech firms and organizations that are aligned to digital disruption. So, there's all of this kind of commentary around the market stability, uncertain times, digital transformation, and there does appear to be a correlation between digitally centric organizations and profitability. And I think if we dial back to 2008, when we were all under the fairly uncertain times, a little over a decade ago, the number of digital unicorns were born during that period. So I think in my blog post I commented on the likes of Uber, Netflix, and numerous others that are now worth in the region of over $1 billion. So that kind of gives you some semblance that these things do correlate. Organizations that are digitally centric are capitalizing on market opportunities, and they have characteristics that other organizations that are potentially falling out of that top 10 generally don't. As an example, General Electric was massive, and that organization has had significant cuts of its cloth in the last number of years and isn't making anywhere near as much money as it was previously. And I think if we just kind of touch on the combined force of those digital unicorns, for around about 334 of them globally, they have a combined worth of over $1 trillion, which is pretty staggering when you look at it on the surface of things. So look, I think we're all kind of looking at digital capabilities and transformation, and how do we keep the lights on in our business? How do we make sure that everyone in our organization has still got a job tomorrow? And these are, fairly treacherous things for us all to be thinking about. But amidst all of that market uncertainty, it is absolutely imperative to remain competitive. And if you rest on your laurels, and if you just think that maintaining the status quo is going to allow your organization to thrive in the future, I think the evidence that we've just provided counteracts that significantly. And when we talk about digital transformation, there are a number of capabilities that you absolutely need to have in place. And I'll tease out more of these as we move through today's presentation. But a lot's been said about cloud computing, and industries that have previously been reticent to embracing it, so financial services and insurance, have undoubtedly started to adopt public cloud significantly more in the last few years, because they see that there is an opportunity there to reduce your total cost of ownership and run a more efficient IT shop. So using dynamic scaling capability, ephemeral environments, making sure that you can use reserved instances from the cloud provider to get a more competitive cost. If we are talking back to the point of cash is king, then cloud computing can actually alleviate your on-premise data center costs and very quickly remove costs from your organization. And where I said a moment ago, I fell out of love with digital transformation, I think it's also the same for DevOps. So for me, DevOps has become a bit of a dirty word. And over the weekend, I picked up the Accelerate book, which Gene Kim and numerous others have contributed towards over the last few years. And in actual fact, that kind of brought to life for me, again, the importance and the necessity for having DevOps as part of your digital transformation capability, not only from a time to market perspective, but if you are getting into position of experimentation, hypothesis-based development, DevOps needs to be a fundamental component of that transformation capability, and fundamentally is also a key element of any digital transformation strategy. And where we speak about remote working and organizations now looking at this as a real kind of consideration for the future, I think I was reading a story today that the CEO of Barclays has said that they may never take out all of the floor space that they have in Canary Wharf, and that houses close to 7,000 people. So if you don't have to have 7,000 people cohabited in London, and previously you've had an issue around bringing new engineering talent into your business that would help drive your digital transformation, you now have an opportunity to go globally and hire people from regions or geographic locations where you previously would never have been able to, because they don't need to be tied to a desk in Southeast London or in Edinburgh. You can think more distributed about the talent that you bring into the business. But also it's really, really important as part of this whole journey to make sure that you remain engaged with your customers in real time. So being able to utilize data analytics, customer insights and business intelligence to be able to harvest that information, to be able to surface it, and then be able to interpret it so that you can make sure that your business is responding to your customers' demands at speed is really, really fundamental. So I think just a couple of examples. So we've spoken about some companies that have really struggled in the last few weeks and how COVID has really exacerbated some of their business issues. But there are examples of companies that have done a really great deal of good in this period of time, and they've pivoted and they've fought a little bit differently because their fear factor has been removed. So, Tesco, as an example, a heavy user of public cloud capability, they've almost doubled their delivery capacity of food services to their customers in 6 weeks. I think I saw a news announcement the other day that they were expecting to deliver over 1 million grocery deliveries to their customers this week, and they were expecting that to go to 1.2 million next week. So they've been able to pivot and reinvigorate their business really, really quickly to cope with significant demand. Brewdog, for those of you that don't know, are a brewery organization in the UK. They make a great ale, but what they also now make is hand sanitizer. So they've seen that the NHS has had significant issues with getting PPE and the right level of alcohol gel into the hospitals. So if you think about their ability to change, still deliver brew great beer, but they're also building hand sanitizer, which from their perspective is a great brand association piece to be able to say that we're also helping the NHS. So they pivoted their business really, really quickly to make sure that they can maintain status quo, make sure they keep all their people employed, but also build a brand reputational piece there that will really attract customers to their brand. The likes of Google and Apple have obviously launched their COVID-19 healthcare tracking application. I don't think it's any surprise to see those types of organizations to be able to deliver significant change at speed using their kind of public cloud and modern engineering capabilities. And there's a couple of other examples in the likes of Louis Vuitton and Barbour producing PPE. So these kind of tidbits of change in the organization shows that actually when you do think a little bit differently, you can innovate. And I think there are examples of that, particularly in financial services, where the likes of Nationwide and Barclays, to name but a few, have obviously recognized significant contention going into their contact centers. They've had issues whereby they may not necessarily be able to run the total number of call agents that they usually would. And they've now looked at, well, let's build a mortgage window application process online so that we can still surface those customer requirements, and work on that process in the background without having any kind of real customer contention and frustration as a result of not being able to maintain typical frontline services. And we've invariably generated a couple of examples in our own business where we've helped organizations here at Contino. So we've helped a leading UK bank deploy chatbot capabilities on Microsoft Azure, which at this moment in time is servicing 14,000 conversations per day, which is actually allowing them to respond to customer queries 33% faster. So previously they'd had this kind of chatbot capability that hadn't really taken off, but as a result of COVID, there was a significant increase in that demand, to the extent that that application actually became a category A system in light of that increased traffic. So we're seeing response times increases by 180%, and almost 50% of those queries are being resolved by the chatbot. So where you're talking about material impacts to frontline services and contact centers not necessarily being able to work in a fully fledged manner, we're actually solving complex customer queries at source with chatbots. So that whole kind of piece of artificial intelligence and machine learning is actually becoming more and more pertinent in the industry as well. And we've also kind of looked at the remote working space for a number of our customers. So we're working with a number of public sector bodies to help alleviate contention and challenges, which we're hoping to come to market and talk about a lot more in the next few weeks. But a lot of our enterprise customers haven't been geared up to respond to the demands and impacts of COVID, and they haven't really thought about how they can build a digital workforce for the future, and have really maintained a status quo with significant real estate, PCs on desks, and kind of very atypical legacy enterprise ways of working. But we've got to the extent where we've stood up nearly about 2,000 AWS workspaces in a very, very quick manner, which has unblocked significant contention in their business and got a number of people in their organization working very, very quickly. So again, these are examples of how you can use public cloud and digital capabilities to innovate and almost use this as a catalyst to really build enduring transformation in your business, are starting to surface in industry. And that's why I'm really, really kind of honing in on this with our customers to make sure that they're thinking more seriously about digital transformation moving forward. But invariably, organizations have always had their own challenges. And as part of one of my blog posts, I really focused on this mindset of the fear factor, and organizations not really having the skills and capability, and this position where security and compliance are traditionally the church of no. And without sounding like a great philosopher myself, so as part of my other blog that I spoke about, George Cantor said, great innovation only happens when people aren't afraid to do things differently. And we've given some examples of businesses from different industries and different verticals thinking, how can we help our customers do the things that they need to do and remove friction from their lives? And that's generally what we want to be doing as part of digital transformation. But there is always things that block that. So bureaucracy, organizational silos, legacy ways of working, monolithic architectures, lack of skills, and generally lots of manual processes that rely upon human intervention, lots of swivel chair activities, which then have a material impact on organizations' ability to deliver great products and great services to their customers at speed. And naturally, as part of those kind of technology decisions, a lot of them are predicated on poorly defined business cases. And over time, that just exacerbates by organizations maintaining a status quo and then not necessarily making the right investments in their business to make sure that they're helping their customers do those great things that they want them to. So there's always a number of pillars and a number of fundamentals that you always need as part of any digital transformation agenda. But more often than not, companies need to first and foremost identify their compelling event. So they need to find their why. Why do we need to digitally transform? There's a lot of conjecture in the industry about making sure that we should embrace digital channels and move to multi or omni-channel capabilities. But naturally, not every organization is an Uber, a Netflix, or a Facebook. You service your customers for a very, very particular reason. So why do you service your customers? What can't you do at this moment in time? And what do you want to do? And naturally, when you start to move those axes all together, that's when you have your compelling event. And naturally, if you don't have a view on what that compelling event is, there is one right now. It's happening before us, and every industry vertical across the world is being disrupted, whether it's by COVID, whether it's by regulation, whether it's by digital unicorns that are going to be stealing market shares. Everything is happening before your eyes. And if nobody can realize that challenge and can't act upon these initiatives and introduce long-lasting change and start demonstrating value in 3 months, then more often than not, you probably shouldn't bother. And I think just in terms of looking at that compelling event and the things that you need to have as part of your fundamental transformation capability, DevSecOps is a core pillar that we always talk to our customers about. So it's all well and good having DevOps ways of working, processes, tooling, and engineering skills in your organization and being able to deliver software at speed. But if you can't do that in a safe and secure manner, then there's not much point. So looking at DevSecOps capabilities and having that in your organization is a key fundamental and a key underpinning of digital transformation. I've spoken around cloud computing already, but the ability to innovate at speed, do that in a kind of fail fast mentality, but also do it in a safe and secure way so that you've got the guardrails around your ecosystem so that people can innovate, they can fail without fear, and they can make use of dynamic compute power so that they don't have to wait many, many months for infrastructure to be provisioned in your on-premise data center. And naturally, this position of building enduring product teams around your technology investments is really, really important. So moving from a project-orientated delivery where you deliver a program of work and then you hand it over to an operations team, you need to make sure that your products are aligned around your customer journeys. So if you're a financial services institution, that might be a mission where you want to help people save money for the future, or it might be you want them to be able to take out a mortgage. And if you're an insurance organization, it might be I want to help my customer take out a policy on their home or a policy out on their motor insurance. And all those things around building your product orientated teams with lines of business and business representation is really, really important. And over that period of time, it's kind of, well, how do you now evolve your operating model and move towards cross-functional delivery teams which have cohabited resources from engineering, testing, infrastructure, product ownership, the business, so that you can start to solicit those quick feedback loops of information and business insights and almost embrace a model of you build it, you run it. So that has that kind of sense of autonomy, empowerment and responsibility in your organization so that people feel a greater affinity to the products and services that they're building. And invariably, you can't do anything without data analytics. So that position of getting those fast feedback loops and having that business insight is really fundamental for your organization to be able to make decisions and make sure that those decisions are informed and not made on a gut instinct or a position of this is what we've always done, so it's going to work. And then you can start to look at things like business process automation and how that can hook into machine learning and AI. So there are a number of things in enterprise that are mundane and they happen every day. And business process automation is a great way of removing significant cost overheads from your business. It might be things like balance sheet management, reconciliation with third-party systems. I was speaking to one organization the other day that's looking at business process automation, is estimating that they can remove £60 million worth of cost from their balance sheet management processes. And then if you start to feed all of that into machine learning and AI and data analytics and being able to service all of this information across your business, there's a whole heap of value that you can potentially unlock. And I think one of the things that I've learned in the data space in the last year or two is that it is incredibly visceral. So people of all ages and of all technical capabilities understand graphs, they understand how pointers and indices are moving up or down. And actually, as a human trait, we love to be able to interact with something that we can ask questions and we can almost be curious about. And data analytics and being able to harness that kind of data intelligence in organizations is something that is going to really drive your digital transformation. So if you don't have a data strategy yet, that is a real kind of key fundamental building block of making that enduring capability moving forward. So it's all well and good having those capabilities, but if you can't lead people through that change, there's not much point doing it. And leadership is a peculiar thing because people think that leaders only exist at the top of organizations, when in actual fact they don't. Leaders exist at every tier of your organization, whether they be engineers, whether they be organizational change management experts, whether they be C-level stakeholders in your business. But you always need to make sure as part of your digital transformation that you have leaders at every tier of your business. And naturally, the things that those leaders need to be able to do and the things that they need to be able to enable in any digital transformation are heterogeneous across any industry vertical. So when we talk about digital transformation, we've learned by experience it's important to have champions in your organization You know, people that are able to drive that lasting change, people that bang the drum, people that are happy to write the PR posts, people that are happy to share about their great news stories across the business, but people that also have the confidence, and the people that also have the stakeholder responsibility in your organization and trust of other teams are really key to be in kind of that digital champion role. This isn't a kind of a byproduct of everything that Contino does, but it's really important to build an engineering culture and trust between teams as part of your digital transformation. So for many, many, many years, if you've outsourced your IT capability to a third party, that may have worked for you, but naturally your organization is probably governed by SLAs, change requests, long lead times to get software into production. And that cannot be the case if you are going to operate in a digitally centric world. So having an engineering culture in your organization is going to be fundamental for your digital transformation to succeed. Having partners help you as part of that strategy is really vitally important, particularly if you don't have the skills in the first instance. But over time, there will be a position whereby some of your applications you will need to go alone. But invariably, there will be some apps where you might have a commercial off-the-shelf product, where you may want to outsource that to a third party to kind of maintain that kind of responsibility for you. It's important for leaders to make sure that you're investing in your people, making sure that those people can learn new skills. But it's also important to recognize that you might need to go to market to acquire new talent and bring that into your business. You may not have the right people to help your transformation succeed. So it's important to be able to attract people to your business. And that's why it's then important to make sure that you've got an engineering first culture, but also a clearly defined mandate and mission statement about your digital transformation, which acts as an enabler to inspire people to join that change. It's always important to seek and reward work that drives collaboration. And as I've touched on this a couple of times as well, it's vitally important to make sure that you have cloud computing at the heart of that digital transformation so that you can introduce safe experimentation so that business units can try out new ideas, try out hypotheses, and take new products and services to new geographical locations which previously you might not have entered. And naturally, when you do have that talent in your organization, it's important to make sure that they aren't shackled to a single line of business. So we've all been there where we've got a knowledgeable SME in our organization that has all of the kudos, all of the credibility, and all of the deep experience of a certain tech stack. And we love to keep hold of them and wrap them up in cotton wool because we don't want anyone else in the business to get that experience. But it's important to encourage people to move across your business, because naturally, as you move across a line of business into another area, you become curious, you ask questions. And as part of that whole idea of continuous improvement, that's a key component of making sure that your digital transformation agenda succeeds. You've always got to be asking yourself challenging questions. You've always got to be curious about the transformation, and you've got to be asking questions of, are we actually on track? Are we meeting the metrics and KPIs that we'd set out to be? Are they the right metrics and KPIs to be measuring? So encouraging people to move across your business is really, really important. I think one of the points that I also see many organizations fail upon as part of their digital transformation, or not necessarily succeed on, is that they have this idea and obsession of a single pane of glass, a single orchestration layer, and every application team going through the same pipeline. I hate to tell you this, but not every application is the same. Each application has its own nuance. It's all written in different application codes and languages. And naturally, you can't be pushing the same square peg through the same round hole. And naturally, that's where you need to empower your lines of business to choose their own technology, allow them to put in place their own CI/CD pipelines, their own IDEs. They might want to launch a SaaS-based tool chain. They might want to use GCP. They might want to use AWS or Azure. It's all great and good allowing them to do that, but making sure that you've got the right control parameters, the right advice, and the right guardrails in place will actually allow your people to do the right things. And if you empower them with the right tool sets and the right choices, that will actually unlock significant business value for your organization. as part of your digital agenda. And as part of that, it's really important to make sure that monitoring is a key priority as part of this change. So, you know, time and time again, I mentioned this a second ago around, you know, data and analytics and having the right business intelligence and dashboards so that your organization can make informed decisions. It's the same around monitoring, right? So are the products and services that we're delivering to production behaving in a way that our customers enjoy? Are we seeing saturation? Are we seeing latency? Are we seeing errors in the system? You know, those are things that our customers don't want to see. So making sure that you've got the right amount of transparency around your service is really, really key. But also from a monitoring perspective, it's important, imperative to make sure that that vision and that mission statement that you've aligned as your digital ambition is fundamentally underpinned by a set of KPIs and metrics that can be scrupulously and objectively measured across your software development lifecycle. So it's making sure you've got those technology KPIs around mean time to restore, number of frequency of deployment to production, making sure that your velocity is being measured, all those great things around lead time, but also making sure you're asking yourself the question of, are we acquiring the right number of customers? Are we retaining the right number of customers, or are we losing them? Are we making the right amount of revenue associated to these business lines? And actually, do we need to reassess our investments across our portfolio because a certain business line isn't making us the money that we want it to? And the fundamental component of any digital transformation is to make sure you focus on your customer. Digital transformation is not a technology change. It is a root canal of how your business operates. It is a root canal of how your organization interacts with your customer, and everything you have and everything that you do needs to have the customer at the heart of it. So I think there's just a couple of points here that we wanted to kind of tease out as part of this conversation today as well. But the ability to react, we've spoken about this throughout a couple of the earlier slides, but there's some examples in industry and reputable organizations like TED have said that timing is everything. So, you know, your ability to enter a new market is predicated on a number of things, whether it be socioeconomic, whether it be market turbulence, whether it be other organizations exiting or not necessarily launching new products. It could well be that you're not first to market. It could well be that you're the second. But timing accounts for 42% of the difference between success and failure when it comes to digital transformation. So I guess the capability here and the kind of the key point that we really want to touch on is it's imperative for your organization to have the ability to pivot at the right time. And if we go back to some of those earlier slides around the core capabilities of digital transformation, making sure you've got an engineering culture, an empowered team, and the right processes and tools in place. If you don't have that, you don't have the ability to pivot. And that's an absolute imperative. And there are examples of new market entrants like Uber and Airbnb, as I said earlier, that have done that very thing. There are also examples of organizations in industry with the likes of Capital One, you know, ING as well, that have gone through significant transformations and really redefined themselves, not as financial institutions, but as software organizations as well. And there's a whole heap of you know, propaganda on the internet around that, which I would encourage you all to look at. As I've said, it's really important to make sure you put your customer at the heart of everything that you do. And learning about your customer now will unlock a whole heap of information about how you interact with them in the future. So we've spoken around, you know, contact centers getting an increase in volume of calls, chatbots, you know, surfacing a lot of customer queries and resolving them faster. But actually, you're going to be able to, you know, analyze that information that's come into your organization and actually start to understand what are some of the bottlenecks and challenges that your customers are facing, why you might be losing customers, how are their needs changing, and actually how are they interacting with your services. So having that, all of that information now, when actually organizations are going to be interacting with their customers more than ever, is really important. And there are things that you can invariably do to unlock a lot of that value, and we've spoken around, you know, automation first and foremost, looking at how you can implement a, you know, a self-service model across your product sets, how intelligent portals can help alleviate business contention for you, and actually having chatbots in place can help drive that kind of customer first interaction when typical bricks and mortar or contact center channels haven't necessarily stood the test of time and have been significantly disrupted during this period. So data is a kind of a very key component, and I've touched on this as we've moved through the presentation today. But the best place to learn about your customer is through your data, right? And making sure that your firm has a data strategy that is enabling you to, enabling your organization to really emphasize on those targets, and really be able to unlock insights through that data is really, really important. And naturally, as you start to be able to harness that information, you can start to cross-sell product sets. You can identify patterns and trends, and you can then start to introduce premises like location-enabled marketing, going after certain demographics, identifying lookalikes for certain product sets, and then start to make data-driven product strategies around your services in your portfolio. And naturally, there are things that you need to have in place to do that. And Mark Pybus, our data practice director here in EMEA, has been blogging and sharing a number of things in that regard, as we have over the raft of our CloudFest presentations. But looking at making sure you've got a landing zone, making sure you've got a cloud native data platform that makes use of high level services from the cloud service providers, looking at how you can harness SaaS-based tooling to really kind of offlift or offload that kind of commodity IT component. And as I said earlier, making sure that business process automation is a key component of that data strategy will actually allow your business to be successful in the future as well. And as I said, I was spending a lot of time at the weekend preparing for today's presentation and doing a lot of reading. And I'm working with a number of customers at the moment who are looking at their software development life cycles and saying, look, we really need to improve our KPI measurement. We need to modernize our ways of working, because we are looking at our digital strategy and how we transform. And there's a lot of information that we've generated from having measured numerous enterprise customers many years since Contino has been born. But if we turn our attention to the DORA State of DevOps report, there's a correlation between the highest performing digital teams who are twice as likely to meet or exceed organizational performance goals. So just to kind of bookend that, the organizations that can deliver change faster are going to be the most profitable. And high performing digital teams are 24% more likely to be using cloud-based technologies. So all of the things that we've seeded into today's presentation, there is evidence to suggest that cloud computing, DevOps ways of working, modern engineering skills equals more money. And if we kind of look into more detail around the characteristics of those high performing organizations, they're naturally going to be deploying 208 more times frequently into production. They've got 106 times faster lead time. They're able to recover quicker than their competitors, and actually their change failure rate is significantly lower. So all of those things that I spoke about earlier are key characteristics of high performance organizations. And just to kind of give you some examples of this, if you take the example of some data sets that the DORA assessment provides, if you invest £5.6 million in digital capabilities and modern engineering ways of working, there is a potential uptick there for a $75 million return. So that's a significant ROI as part of any digital transformation investment. And actually, that's not just a research paper that has been launched to market. We've actually worked with a global investment banking customer here at Contino, where they saved $1.76 for every dollar that was spent on their DevOps focused initiative. And for anyone interested in understanding how we build the business case around that, we're happy to spend time with our customers as part of our momentum framework to really help you nurture and plan how you can build that business case for long-standing digital transformation. So covered a lot of ground as part of today's presentation, and hopefully you can see just how powerful digital capabilities can be in your organization. but also just how passionate we are here at Contino about making sure our customers embrace modern ways of working, and how much we want to kind of share our experiences, not only just on the last couple of weeks, but based on our significant experience of working with enterprise customers on their digital capabilities for the many years that we've been born. So if I was kind of list out the key takeaways as part of today's session, it's fundamental that organizations take digital adaptation very, very seriously. And it really is a new source of competitive advantage in very, very uncertain times. If we study past crises, looking at the likes of the global financial crisis in 2008, there are opportunities to be had. So we've spoken about the urgency and the need to be able to pivot your kind of organization and turn the oil tanker so that you can remain meaningful, so that you can remain disruptive, both to yourselves internally and to your competitors. Opportunities are starting to arise, and we've given examples of that as well. We've given you some insights onto the core capabilities that need to be in place for your organization to digitally transform. We've spoken about DevOps, we've spoken about cloud, and we've spoken about data and AI as some examples that you need to have in place. But it is important to invest in those changes now. So I gave an example earlier where some organizations may be taking the position of pausing their investments, but actually pausing those investments is going to stifle your ability to be able to ride through these uncertain waves and make sure that when the stormy seas do calm, you can sail through these uncharted waters with a lot more certainty. And actually having all of these digital capabilities in place, looking at how you can build distributed global workforces, empowering with the right technologies, putting the right processes in place, and removing those silos and organizational bureaucracy are actually going to have a material impact on your organization's ability to generate more revenue, but also enable you to make sure that you've got cash in reserve and make sure that you've got ability to lower your total cost of ownership across your desire to serve your customers. But the key thing here is that there is no silver bullet to digital transformation. It is really, really hard. And naturally, anyone in Contino will tell you that we've got significant experience in having done this with more enterprise customers than any. And if there is anything that we can take away from today's experiences, I'm hoping that we've given you a good example of the building blocks that you need to have in place to build enduring and meaningful digital transformation in your respective organizations. So that's all from me today. I will pause for a moment's breath and just say, first and foremost, thank you to everybody for joining us on the webinar. I hope it's been an insightful session, and I hope that the points that we've raised haven't been too contentious for you all. CloudFest is going to continue as we move through the next month or two, and we've got some of our colleagues from APAC who are going to be presenting on reliability engineering at the core of continuous innovation. So I know that concepts like SRE are becoming more and more pertinent in our conversations with customers. And where we've focused on the operational resilience of applications, and we've touched on that today from a customer experience perspective. I know the guys in APAC have got a lot of information that will be great to share. So if you haven't registered for that, I would certainly recommend that you do. And we'll be distributing the slides and follow-up sessions for everyone to kind of put their hands in the air to join those sessions as well in the future. So I guess all that remains to be said from me is thank you for joining today's webinar. I hope you found it a useful session. And as ever, if you want to connect with me online or ask me any questions over LinkedIn, feel free to do so. And as ever, feel free to check out the Contino website for more insights and information as we move through these COVID-19 challenging periods of time, but also as we look forward into the digital future and share our insights and experiences from a number of industry verticals. Thanks very much for dialing in today, and I wish you all a safe and happy evening. Take care. Bye-bye.